All right. Hey, team. Welcome to Colbyashi Maru, the show where devs all around the world boldly face off against the most legible tools of the web. I'm Colby Fayok, your Space Jelly commander and host of today's challenge. Today, we have Shruti Kapoor. Shruti is a senior software engineer at PayPal. So let's bring her in. Hey, Shruti, do you want to give yourself a quick introduction? Or is there anything else you'd like to add?
Hey everyone, thank you for having me here, Colby. It's so nice to be here. My name is Shruti Kapoor, and I'm a senior software engineer at PayPal. I've been working with GraphQL for 3-ish years, and I have to say, I faced a lot of challenges with GraphQL. So today, my goal is to kind of ease the process for other people.
Love it. Love it. Cool. Well, if you're new to Colbyashi Maru, our guests will have 1 hour to complete their challenge. Through that time, Shruti will try to talk out loud as she's working through that challenge. And I'll also be asking questions along the way. So if you have a question, make sure you ask it in the chat and I'll send it over. Today, Shruti will be facing off against wrapping a REST API with GraphQL. If she doesn't finish, all is not lost. We'll see if we have a little bit of time at the end. Otherwise, we'll chat about what those next steps would be. So Shruti, before we actually dive in, do you want to just talk a little bit about GraphQL and the tools that you'll be using today?
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, so today I'm going to use GraphQL. And basically, the project that I'm going to do today is converting a REST API into a GraphQL API. And I think this is a common thing that a lot of enterprises would be having. So in some project, maybe you want to start adopting GraphQL, but you've got like tons of REST APIs built, and it's not practical to like strap them down and like start a new GraphQL API. So kind of like an intermediate step in usually that companies do is they wrap their REST API with GraphQL API so that the client who's going to be talking to your API still gets the benefit of GraphQL, but in the back end, like everything that you have stays intact. So it's kind of like that stopgap solution. But it's also used at scale in multiple companies. At PayPal as well, we used a kind of like this, it's called an orchestration layer. So we use this orchestration layer at scale as well. So the project that I'm going to be building today is, can you see my screen?
Now you can.
Okay, sweet. So the project I'm going to build today is using dev.to's API. Dev.to has REST APIs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use maybe one of their APIs, convert them into GraphQL, and show how we can convert. So this will be like an example of how to convert a REST API into a GraphQL API. Specifically, I will dive into maybe just like one endpoint and show you how to like basically set up the template of how you can go forward with it. The tools that I'll be using is my IDE, WebStorm. I'll show you the NPM packages as well. We'll be using, oh, that's a lot of packages, but let's not worry about that. We'll be using GraphQL JS package, which is the NPM package for enabling GraphQL in the JavaScript layer. Another package called GraphQL tag, which is, I'll talk about it as we get to it. But yeah, some NPM modules here and there, but mostly GraphQL packages.
Cool. That sounds good. Well, if you're ready to get started, I think I am. So if you are, I will start the timer.
All right, sweet.
All right.
No
So
pressure, coded in
no pressure
pressure.
at
It's
all.
like being in an interview.
No pressure at all. No pressure. But 3, 2, 1, let's go.
Okay, sweet. All right. So, in the interest of time, what I'm going to do is I have created this GraphQL boilerplate, and let me just actually show what the boilerplate is. I can show it here. Okay, so basically I've set up GraphQL in kind of like this example boilerplate kind of repo. And this would be very similar to how you would set up GraphQL in your own company, in your own project. But the basic idea is that there is two sides of GraphQL, right? There's a server side, which is where you have your GraphQL API. And then there's a client side, which is how you fetch the GraphQL API, which is how you consume the GraphQL API. So that's what I've divided this into. So there's client and there's server. Today, we're going to be working on the server side because we're building the GraphQL API. So if you want to check it out, the link is here. I will post it in the chat and Kobe will broadcast it.
Yep, I'll share it over in Twitch.
Sweet. Okay. So let's get into the project here and I'll explain what we're going to do. So if you have, if you have, if you want to start using GraphQL, there's like bunch of different tools that you can use. There's Apollo, there's Express, but I think the simplest to use is Express GraphQL, which is the one that I've added here. And you can get it by like npm install Express GraphQL. It's super simple. So it's basically like an Express server, but it spins up a GraphQL server for you. So I am going to show how to do that. Maybe let's me comment this out. So basically what you do is just like you spin up an Express app, you have app Express, define a port, but then also say that I'll be using a GraphQL endpoint, and you have to provide your schema value and your root value. So what does root value mean? I'll come to it in a minute, but basically this is how GraphQL knows how to find your resolvers. For those of you who are not familiar with resolvers is how GraphQL knows what data to give back if a field is requested. So if you ask for user, how does GraphQL know what data to give back for user? That's configured through something called root value. And that's basically how GraphQL knows where to find your resolver for user. So that's how we configure this GraphQL server. Now let's, before we do anything else, clear our terminal. But also, let's give it a go and see what do we see so far. If you get the boilerplate right now, I'll show what you see so far. So all I have to do is go to node server. Where is this? I am in the client folder. So go node server and server.js. Okay, so if you run the boilerplate right now, you'll see that it says running a GraphQL server at this, and I'm just going to open it in my browser. What happened here?
Jaywood's saying that they love that you're using WebStorm.
Yes, I love WebStorm. I know everybody loves Visual Studio, but I'm a WebStorm fan. Okay, so if you open, so basically if you open the /GraphQL endpoint, you'll see that you come to this kind of tool. This tool is called Graphical. And basically what this tool lets you do is fire off queries. So for example, the only query that I have so far is hello. And on the right side, you'll also see documentation of like what this stands for. So if I just click on the run button, I'll see something like a demo text come back. So that's it. It's pretty straightforward. Shall I zoom in so it's easy to be seen?
Yeah, that's nice. So did you, for the graphical editor, sorry if I missed this, did you have to install something special, or did that come with the Express?
Oh, good question. Okay, so basically what you do is you've got this graphical, let me zoom this in as well. You've got this graphical parameter, you set it to true, and you get it out of the box.
Oh, that's beautiful. I can't do any GraphQL without it.
Exactly. There's also Playground, which is also really cool. And I think it comes, I don't know if it comes with Express GraphQL, but it comes with Apollo out of the box. But that's another good tool. Okay, so today what we're going to do is we're going to go to dev.to, and we'll find maybe some API that we want to convert to GraphQL. For the purpose of this, let's try to find something easy. So I think this articles one is good. So basically what it does is if you do like a curl, it gives you back, I think it gives you back all the articles that are published, but I think you can pass a username to it. Create users articles. Let's see that. Oh, this requires authorization, but maybe users all articles, me all. I think there should be one where you can just pass a username. Create an article. Article by ID. Oh, there it is. Article / username. So this should work. I think if you do like, let's try this in our terminal. So if we do, I'm going to stop this. So if we do this, oh, too much.
But it worked.
It worked. / I think my username is Shruti Kapoor 08. Let's find out. dev.to / I think it's Shruti Kapoor 08. Okay, so I think if I do this, then I should be able to get all of my recent articles. Let's try. Curl not found. Oh, curl. PS dev.to/API/articles/Shruti Kapoor. Oh, wait. Dev.to API article Shruti Kapoor 08. I think that should be it. Articles. Or let's try this one. Maybe if we do this. Oh, there it is. Articles. Oh, it is question mark and username
Yeah.
equals Shruti Kapoor. Let's try that. There we go. Are these mine? Let's just make sure.
Nice.
What is access control? Yep, that looks like mine. I recognize that article.
Yay.
Yay. Okay, sweet. So it looks like this is the one that we can use. Username equals Shruti Kapoor. That's the one that I'll use. And let's just look at the example for their samples here. I'm gonna zoom this in so it's easy to see. I can't move this, but anyways, let's look at the content here. So if I look at the sample response they've posted, it seems like they've got a type of, a title, a description, cover image. So maybe let's try just like fetching the title. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna get the title off of this response, and it may return. I think it returns an array of items. It does return an array of items. And so what we'll do is we'll extract the title and we'll put it in an array, and then we'll try to like send the array back to our client. So, okay, so here's what the magic happens. So root value was the one that I was telling about, right? Like this is how we define how GraphQL knows which resolver to pull. So root value comes from this file that I've created here, schema. So let's just go into schema. And once I go here, you'll see that I've got a root value for root as well. I'll zoom this in. So I've got a root value for hello. And this is how we were getting that hello word back in our API, in our playground. Okay, so here, let's go back to our playground here, our graphical here, and let's think about like what we want to send. So maybe let's call it, I don't know, blogs. So let's say that if we fetch the field blogs, I want to get array of all of my blogs, all of my recent blogs back. So I can basically, what I want to do now is I want to implement a resolver for a field blogs. And then in that resolver, I want to call my REST API. So what I'm going to do here is, because it's just a fetch, I'm not providing anything to it. I'm just like querying that API for data. It's a query. It's not going to be a mutation. Mutation is when I have to pass like it'll be like an equivalent to a post or a put or a delete in REST API. But now I'm doing a get. That's why it's going to be a type query. So here I'm going to type blogs. And then I was saying that maybe it fetches me back a list of blog posts. So it would be a string, but an array of string. Cool.
Yeah. So just out of curiosity, if you were to implement like a non-wrapped REST API, would you do something similar, but at this point you would reach out to like your database? Is that typically how the REST API or the GraphQL APIs are created?
Yeah, exactly. That's basically it. So the entire magic of GraphQL happens basically here in Resolver. So you can reach out to any data source. That could be REST API, that could be another GraphQL API, that could be a database, but that anything that you want to reach out to, that will happen here. So if we want, we could
That's
actually
cool.
change this to like get from your database SQL commands. Not gonna go into that uncharted
Yeah, of course.
territory. Okay, so any question from the audience? Let me do a quick check in.
Not quite yet.
Okay, sweet, great. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna implement the resolver for this function because that's how GraphQL will know who to pull and what data to give back. Um, there's multiple ways of organizing the resolver functions. Like I'm just doing a sample one, so I'm putting all of my resolvers here. But typically what you would do is you'd have a separate file for each of those resolvers, combine those resolvers, send it back, that kind of stuff. But anyways, so this is where we're going to do blocks. And this will be super simple. So what we're going to do here is basically simple, similar to how we would call a REST API, get its data, change it, like use fetch, maybe change it into JSON, reduce it, just extract the title and then send it back. So that's all we're going to do. So let's grab our API endpoint, which is here. So I'm going to do cast API endpoint calls this. My username is Shruti Kapoor 08. And of course, we'll make it dynamic if you have to, that kind of stuff. But okay, so we've got that. And then we want to make a, there's no authentication here, so that's good. Then we want to make a fetch call. So for that, I will import, I think I have package JSON node fetch comes with node, so it's fine. So I can get fetch, and then I just need to require this. Require node fetch. Does it like it? It's not listed. Should be fine. Let's try this. Fetch API endpoint, and then first we're going to console log this. But let's do it then. Let's see what we get back. Console.log data. If we have any problem, we'll find it here.
I'm absolutely spoiled by tools like Next.js that polyfill the node fetch. I love that.
Yeah, right. It's like so weird when you're building like just like a vanilla JavaScript application. It's like, okay, does it come? Does it not come? Okay, let's try this. If we do get data, we'll console log data, but we can try that. Let's spin up our server for sure. Go back to GraphQL, open our console. Give it a run. Blocks is null, but we do not have this file. Do we have any errors? Let's see. Oh, there it is. Looks like it's fine. We've got the body back. I think we just need to convert it into JSON because we've got a buffer coming in.
Does it need to be like awaited or, by the way, I'm not sure if you heard that beeping. You have 45 minutes left.
Oh, damn. It'll be fine. Okay. Let's do this. I think what we can do is if we convert this into data.json, that should be fine because we've got a then here. And then run this again and reload this and run this and go back. And we've got a promise. Oh no, my headphones died.
Oh, I can still hear it. Oh.
Okay, I think now I can hear you.
Test? Hello?
Yes.
Yay!
No, I can hear you.
It's funny because we were able to hear you the whole time, but I paused it for you, so I'm going to restart that, or not restart, but start the timer back up just to make it fair for you. Okay, so we're back, and we're good. Okay.
Sweet. Okay. Technical difficulties.
Okay, where were we? Oh yes, we were logging our data. All right, getting back to it. So because I've lost my train of thought, I'm just gonna see where how far we've gotten.
Jay Wood said that's the real Colbyashi Maru challenge.
Okay, let's see. Yeah, so we've got a promise pending, which is fine because we're gonna we're gonna log that here. So, all right. So okay, so what we're gonna do here is first we want to convert our data into data JSON, and then I'm not using awaits here because I haven't set it up, but we can use the
Mhm.
thens. And I think at this point we'll have the response, and then what we can do is I think at this point we'll have like that big array coming, but just to verify, also try to console log response, console log everything.
Does that JSON need to be a function?
Oh, you're right. And maybe prettify this as well while we're at it. Then response console log response. There we go. Okay, sweet. Let's try this. So we've got blocks, we've got fetch, API endpoint, then data JSON, response, console log response. And I'm gonna restart the server. And we've got null here, but we've got everything coming back here. Cool.
Oh, beautiful. Nice.
Okay, work is done. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so at this point, now it's just like basically JavaScript. We've got an array coming back now. We just need to extract that out. Simple like JavaScript, or not simple, but like JavaScript reduce thing. So what we can do is, I think this response is an array. Let's just make sure at the bottom here. Yeah, it is an array. So this response is an array, and then what we want to do is we want to pick each item of the array, and then from that item I think we can just get the title, which is right here, so we don't need to like go in. So basically what we're going to do is we've got the response. We are going to loop through response, so we can do it through multiple ways like map and things, but let's try reduce, then and open reduces and the end as well. Okay, so reduce needs a accumulator and current value. Accumulator is what we need. We'll pass an array to it, and then current value will be the item. So item dot title is what we need. So we'll use reduce. We need the array, and then item, and then what we're gonna do is return the array. But before that, also provide an array to it. But before that, we're gonna give array dot push an item. So we need items title, and then response reduce this.
It's funny with reduce, like that's one of the ones I know how helpful it can be, but it's the one I always have to look up because I never can remember how to use it.
Exactly. That's why I always prefer map, because map is like, okay, it's just like a loop,
Map is
right?
so
But like,
nice. Yeah.
right? But with reduce, it's like, okay, there's an accumulator, but there's also like items you can pass it.
Right.
But it's so powerful.
It's really great.
Okay, let's also like verify that what we did here was right. So console logs. You'll see I'm a big fan of console logs.
I'm right there with you.
Okay, and I think we have to return test. So let's try this. Quit, start, and where is this?
Nice.
Done.
Yeah. Mic drop.
Okay, how much time is there?
There is still 38-ish minutes left.
See, pro.
Love it.
Okay, so basically that's basically it. Like regardless of like what API you have, or like regardless of like what kind of data you need to get, that's basically it. Like we everything can be wrapped within a fetch, and then with the fetch we can like make the only kind of like decision we need to make is whether it's a get or a post. So if it's like a get, then it needs to be a query, but for everything else, it needs to be a mutation. So that's the only decision making process that we have to do here. But that's the happy case. So once we have like data coming back, everything looks good. Um, that's it, done. Um, what do you think, Kobe? What should we build next?
What about making it dynamic for username?
Oh yeah, good point. Okay, so let's see. In that case, what we're gonna do is we've got something here called query variables, and so that accepts variable from the user. And so I think what we can do here, I think if we do username and then pass it to like Shruti Kapoor 08, and then pass it to, I think it needs to be like this. Does not appear in any GraphQL query, which is fine. And then with your query itself, we can do ampersand username. It needs to be a string, can be a what expected name found this like that. Oh yeah, and it needs to be like this. Not defined. That's totally fine. Oh, also let's just make sure that we've got the right syntax here.
I think writing that query variable like that along with the function just like made that click in my mind so much, because like I always struggle with dynamic queries and I just kind of like copy and paste things so I get it right, but like being
Yeah.
able to show that that's how it's connected, that just kind of made it click.
Yeah, I'll explain this a little bit as well for those of us who don't know. So basically, here what we're defining is a query variable. So we're just telling GraphQL that graphical or GraphQL that this is the variable that we're gonna passing in. This is the value we're passing in. But here, because this has like a dollar sign, it tells this query that this is a variable that we are picking from somewhere. So in our case, we're picking it from here. And this username is the argument or is the variable, it's the argument that our query expects. So we're basically matching the argument that our query expects to the variable that we've provided from our query variables. Okay, let's just make sure that we've got our syntax right, because syntax can screw us up. I have no idea where this is going to be. I'm just scrolling. I think it's here. Arguments, maybe. ID is this, but ID is, I think this should work. I don't think it'll show us graphical, but I think this will work. Oh yeah, there it is. First, and then first comes from, I don't even know. There it is. Oh, there it is. Episode is here and episode is here. So I think we've got it right. So we've got a query, episode is episode.
Nice.
Here we just have to specify the type. And then in the query itself, we have to specify the variable where it's coming from. For our case, we have actually an unnamed query. So if we had something like a query blog, and then username, I think it's username, and then we specify the type like string, that would be like this. I think it's this. Yeah, that would be what they are talking about here. So we've got a query, we've got this, and then we specify the variable, we specify the type, and then we specify our, like this would be our blogs. So probably too small, but there we go.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Is there like a pros and cons for using a named query? Is it kind of like a function where it's for debugging purposes?
Yeah, basically, yeah. I think like when I think it makes testing a lot easier because you're able to like mock your query when you're writing your tests, but it's also for debugging purposes. It's in query. I've usually seen people just like firing the query as is if they've just got like a one or two. But if you've got multiple ones, then it's really hard to find out like which field is coming from which query. So then it's much nicer to have a name for the query, and same with mutation as well.
Makes sense.
Okay. So if we go back, username on this file, query, and then find in our documentation how we can get trying to find the schema where I have to pass this in. Query hero names. This is first int equals 3. Okay, let's do this. So maybe we come back here and in our, so the first thing we'll have to do is specify how we're going to accept query here. I think what you can do is the same thing that we passed in here. I think it'll accept a string parameter, but it needs to be like a variable. Username is not defined. What if I pass in like Shruti Kapoor? 08. Unknown argument. Oh, this is fine because we have not defined it yet. So if we do that, and does not appear in any GraphQL query, which is fine because it's not here. Okay, this is probably going to throw an error, but let's just see what we're seeing. Unexpected name token found at line 24. Whoops. Okay, we need to find what the syntax is though. Link price, maybe we go to arguments. Arguments should be the one where I can find it.
So there's another page. If you, I can send it in. I found that there's like a specific passing arguments page. I don't know if that would be helpful.
Sure.
I sent it in Zoom if that's helpful.
Ooh,
Because
sweet.
I'm not totally sure.
Oh yes, that's exactly what we need. Okay, so
Okay.
we've got type query, roll dice, num dice, int, and then it passes back in. Okay, so for us, it's the same thing, except we have blocks, and then username is string. Oh, wait, where did it go? There it is. What did we miss? Oh, it's this. There we go. And we can make this required for now. Username string. Okay, sweet. And then I think in our resolver, it says, oh, it shows how to do a resolver here as well. So resolver took no arguments, resolver takes arguments, there passes args object, which is good here. So in our block, I think we can just do blocks and arguments.
Just a heads up, we have 30 minutes left. I know you technically finished the first part, but
we can do this. Okay. I think that's it basically. Like arguments object would have the username. So I think what we can do is get our username from here. So if we get username from arguments, we should be able to get Shruti Kapoor here, and then here just, oh, let's do this. Let's keep this clean and take this out. But instead make this a template string and username. Looks right. I think it looks right. Okay, we've got arguments, has username, looks right. Username.
I think username is typo in there, just so you know, in the endpoint.
Oh, you're right. Okay. API endpoint, and I think that should be it. Let's just make sure we've got arguments. Arguments has that. I think that should be it. All right, let's try this again. Here. And node server.js. GraphQL run. Okay. Did it accept it? Did it just magically accept it? Did.
Yay! Nice.
Okay, let's fetch yours then.
Okay. It should just be
Wait,
Colby.
wait, wait,
Let me know if you know how to spell it.
wait, wait. We didn't do it right. We didn't do it right.
Oh.
I think let's also make this query. So I think query, just to make it look nicer, blocks. And then we get username, string is required, and expected dollar username string, and then this would be username. Yes, unknown argument username on type. It is username here, isn't it? Username. Okay, let's check syntax one more time. Type query. I think it was right here. Episode, and episode comes from here. And then in here we've got episode, which is the one that our blog expects, and then we match it to there. So I think that looks right. Make sure username is okay. Let's try this.
It's hard to follow.
It is okay. Episode matches here. Username that comes here. Oh, where is it? There we go. Hero episode is. Oh, is the problem just that? Shouldn't be it. Why is it not looking? Unknown argument username on field blog. Not sure. If I give it back to an anonymous query, unknown argument username on type, argument value. Argument is this, value comes from here.
Does it need to be like defined inside of the GraphQL or something? Like the schema or something?
I got it here. I think I got it here. I got it here. String is, it should be the same, like it's string mandatory, which is fine. And then I need to pass in. Let's see, let's go back to where we were. And then run this. Oh, so that's weird. It shows an error here, but it actually runs fine.
Oh, that's weird.
If I think when I give it a query variable here, then it has a problem. Username is not defined. But oh, wait, there's a problem with that. Oh, wait, are we not passing it in? I'm not passing it correctly in query variables. That would be funny. Where did it go? I think it was somewhere here. Episode. No, I think we're passing it fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Does it need that outer wrapping query in order to properly be passed in?
Maybe query blocks, and then if I give it username, needs to be a string. And then it says unknown argument username. I think it's probably because the username needs to come. No, this is fine. Or maybe it's it this way and then no.
Well, it was complaining about that first username before, and maybe it's just maybe for some reason it's complaining. I wonder if we try it with the. I think that
expected type string found username. Oh, is it because that? But then here we give username. Okay. Variable username is never used in the operation. The syntax is a headache.
Yeah. I wonder if it's worth trying the top right username, changing that to string. Because I don't know if you ever actually ran with the query like that. Because I think it
Like
was always
this.
complaining about that one. Yeah.
This one, yeah, you're right. And then this username, unknown argument username and field blocks of type query.
Because it was complaining about that even before, right? So I wonder if you hit play on that, if that will work.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe it's just bugged out.
Yeah, that's weird.
Okay. All right. So we've got this working. Now let's try fetching
A
yours.
success.
It's a success. Colby, how do you spell it? Is it that?
Yeah, just OCK. No U in there.
Okay. Let's try that. Does that look right?
Yeah, that looks absolutely right. Nice
All
work.
right.
There we go.
Done.
Yay.
Yay.
Did you so like we could either stop there, or if you wanted to do more, totally up to you. Yeah, I think everything that you've done has been helpful so far. What do you think?
Do we have any questions in the audience?
So far, no.
Okay, sweet.
Jay Wood says challenge passed.
Yes.
So I think, either way, you knocked out two different things, right?
All right.
Do you want to go?
I
Do you
think
want to go for
I've
third, the
already
hat trick, or
exceeded
no?
expectations.
Okay. Sounds good.
Let's
Okay.
do maybe like a error case. Let's see how we'll handle that.
Okay.
How much time do we have left?
So we still have 20 minutes.
Okay. So what do we want to build for troubleshooter headphone issue? I did, yes.
Yes.
I did 2-3 challenges.
Yes.
Okay, maybe let's do an error case, right? So let's see that
That sounds
maybe
good.
the REST API throws an error. How would we handle a REST API in that case? So let's say that we're getting maybe a 400 level error or 500 level error from the API, from your REST API. How could we handle that? So typically, I guess in a REST world itself, we would usually look at the status code of the HTTP response, and then kind of like try to parse it, or like send like a nicer message, or like handle it gracefully in our apps. In GraphQL world, we can kind of do something similar, which is if we get a response which has maybe an error, we can also send it back as the same error, or we can make it nicer or things like that. The only thing in GraphQL is, and that comes on the client side. The only thing in GraphQL is that even though you're getting 500 from the REST API, when you send it as an error, it comes as a 200 to your client. So they don't know that this is that in the orchestration level, the 500 or 400 converted to a 200. So that's a little bit tricky. There
So
isn't really like.
Sorry.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say,
Go
so
ahead.
does GraphQL always return 200s unless there's like an error with like a complete error with the query itself or something?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So that's one of the problems. Like that's one of the big challenges that hasn't been solved yet in GraphQL. And people are still like everybody has their own approach of doing it. Usually the approach that I've taken is and that depends on like the app that you're building as well, but like let's say you're getting a 400 error. 400 is a validation error. So let's say that your API says that this particular field is giving an error, and you send it back to your GraphQL or resolver. So at the resolver layer, you can pass it back in the errors object, and then your client can look at they don't have to look at the HTTP code anymore. They look at the errors object, and then in the errors object they can kind of see what is the response, like what is the information given in the error object. So basically what I'm trying to say that is if there is error thrown from REST API, we can handle that error on our side in the GraphQL resolver and pass whatever information we want in the error object, and then the client can look at the error object. So error object is how we communicate through in GraphQL API. So it's a little bit different from REST API.
Makes sense though. Could always do a 404. That'd probably be an easy one with an invalid username.
Let's try that. See what we get back. So we just get back this, but I think it's probably because response didn't come back with anything. Let's try this. At this point, why don't we give it a shot in our terminal and see what we get back from dev.to's API. It's dev.to/API question/articles question mark username equals that. Let's try that. Oh, it actually doesn't give you back anything.
Interesting. So I guess that's not a good case. What a
Maybe they have some error scenarios we can check.
I know the first time you tried to do a query, you got a 404. Remember that? It was like did you try to do like /articles/username or something like that?
Oh, you're right. I think it was /article/username. Oh yeah.
So we do have one. So we do have one question in here. So it's not particularly directly related, but if somebody's building a pure static site with something like Next.js using get static props, what's the difference between using a REST API or a GraphQL API? So that's going to be happening during the compile process, right?
Yeah. I like Next.js application doesn't really change the REST API versus GraphQL. So the Next.js, I guess, is on the client side or like on your app level, but then the REST API is the API layer. So nothing really changes there. I don't know if Next.js has a special way of handling GraphQL. I don't think it does. But yeah,
I think you would have to add some kind of client, whether that's Apollo or something.
Right, exactly. And that would be the same for like any app that you're building, regardless of whether it's like Next.js or just like a plain vanilla JavaScript app or just a React app. You'll have to have some sort of way of getting that GraphQL client or like GraphQL information, which I can quickly show. I think in components, I might have something. Not sure if I implemented this. Oh, yeah, there is a little bit. So I'll quickly show this. But basically, like what you can do is you can use Apollo client, and with the help of Apollo client, you can make a query call. So we can make a call to the GraphQL API, and this will be the same for Next.js or a React application. So I think this is just like a basic vanilla application, but this will be the same for React.js or Next.js. You just need to have a way for calling your GraphQL API, and that goes the same for REST API, right? In REST API, you have to just, I guess, use fetch, but in GraphQL, the only difference is in addition to using fetch, you also have to query. A cool thing actually is that you don't need to change much. You can just use like fetch, and in the query, you can provide it as string. It makes it a little bit harder to send and parse and make sure that it doesn't have any errors. But technically you don't need Apollo client or anything. You can use just like the basic fetch and pass in your as a string, pass the query in as a string.
Interesting. So probably like between GraphQL and a REST, it's really just preference or what you have as a
yeah. Sometimes people ask a question like, do I need to convert my REST API into GraphQL, or like I'm starting with a new project, should I build a GraphQL API or a REST API? Like I don't see like a clear answer there. It kind of just depends on like how many services you're going to end up calling, and like who's your client, and like how much data you need the client to fetch from your API. And if you have multiple clients, if they're all going to be fetching the same kind of data, so it just depends on that. And if you need caching, right? So like if everybody's fetching the same query, then how can you implement caching there? But if everybody's implementing if everybody's asking for different kind of data, then that's a good like candidate for GraphQL.
That makes sense.
Okay, what were we doing? We've got 15 minutes.
And just
remaining.
yep.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna let you know about the 15 minutes.
Okay. Oh yes, errors. All right. So I think we were doing an error here, and I was saying that um let's mess this up. Let's mess this up and see the data that we get back. Node server there. And in my graphical, if I run this, mess this response or reduce is not a function. Okay, sweet. So this is good. Let's maybe copy this into another one so we don't mess this one up. Blocks, error. And this can go back to this. All right. So here, what we can do is, and so here basically we are gonna do console log response, but we know that this response is a 404, I think, or was it a 500? 404, yes. So we know that this is a 404, but one thing that we want to check here is what is the status code, and I think it's just like response dot, and that will probably come from data. So I think what we can do is console.log data. And then here, and I believe in the data object, we'll have access to status code. This is actually a response, and then response. I think we'll have a status code. Let's just verify. Is it a status or a status code?
I think it's status.
Let's try that. Okay. Run that. Oh yeah, we need, it's called blogs error, and also remember to pass it here. There we go. Blogs error. Oh yeah, to restart this. Blogs error. Run it away. And then here we get, yes. So we get the status code
Nice.
404, but we're also getting this. So, okay. So, oh, not there. Minimize this.
We have a nice little tip here from Jaywood. It said inside of WebStorm, if you put .log after an object, it will automatically surround it with console log after you tab.
Oh,
That's interesting.
You're right. You're right. Yeah, it's response dot, you do log and then that.
Wow, that's beautiful.
I know, that's strong. Okay, so basically, like, we've got the status code. Status code is the one that we want to send back. So we'll put status code in like a, maybe just put it here. Status equals response. There we go. And at this point, like, depends on like how we want to handle this, but let's see if we do a throw new error. I don't even know if this will work, but let's try it. This true and error.
And just so you know, 10 minutes remaining.
All right. Node server, and where is it? Oh, it's right here. Okay, sweet. And this true and error did not bring this because it needs to be status and a $sign. And then run this again. Fire it up. Sweet. So
it will still take that error. You just have to manually throw it once you see it.
Exactly. So okay, so just to specify that as well. So if you see here in data, your blogs error object was null. And so the data is where you have your actual like happy path data, but then the errors object is where you have anything that is happening due to an error. Like any error that's thrown by GraphQL comes through the errors object. So in your client side, you look for whether data has anything, like blogs.error has anything. If it doesn't, then you look for an errors object, which is here. And then you find out, like, then you parse your error and find out like what you need to do next. So here we threw an error from here, but GraphQL was smart enough to convert that into the errors object. So it does that like for us. And then we set whatever we send as an error comes in the message object.
Nice. Awesome. So that was that you got a hat trick, right? The three challenges, actually technically four with the headphones.
4
So
challenges.
yeah, I think you did pretty well there. Awesome. Well, I'm
All
gonna stop the
right.
timer because I think we're good there. Cool. Well, yeah, do you want to just quickly go through what you put together? A
Yeah.
quick review.
Yes, sounds good. So, okay. So from the top, what we did was we set up a GraphQL server using Express GraphQL. I'll show this in the server.js. We use Express GraphQL to spin up a simple GraphQL server. To spin up a GraphQL server, we need to provide an endpoint, which is the /GraphQL, the root value, which is the resolvers, the schema, and if you want optional parameters like graphical, which is super helpful, the graphical tool. So that's what we did to spin up a Express GraphQL server. Once it's running, we can do node server file, and it spins up on localhost 3000, which is the GraphQL playground, the GraphQL app here, and it's really helpful for fighting queries and things like that. Then what we did was we wanted to query. So the whole project is to change a REST API into a GraphQL API, or orchestrated REST API into a GraphQL API. So the project that we used, the endpoint that we used is dev.to's articles endpoint, and it accepts a username. So what we did was we first added a query for blogs, accepted a username argument. Then for converting a REST API into a GraphQL API, the magic happens in the resolver function, which is the blogs function here. Oh, actually, this one, which is the blogs function here. So any conversion, any orchestration can happen in the resolver. And after that, it's a basic, simple like fetch of the data and then parsing the data to give us back the title. Once we did that, we were able to see like a list of blocks come back. I'll quickly run that as well here. Username is Colby.
I'll have to secure that other username.
So we get like we
Beautiful.
get our blocks back in the GraphQL API, and similarly we did an error case as well. So we passed in like a endpoint which doesn't exist. So this actually gives a 404 from the REST API. And from GraphQL's perspective, we actually have to parse the response that we get from REST API and throw it as an error. But GraphQL does the job of converting it into an errors object, which is how a client can check.
That's awesome. That wasn't too bad. GraphQL Express makes that pretty nice and straightforward.
Yeah, it's a lot of people also think that you need to like spin up Apollo server and set that up, but actually GraphQL Express makes it really easy to spin up a node server, like an Express server for GraphQL. Wait, I lost your voice again.
I hit mute accidentally. I thought I unmuted, but I think I was on the opposite. Yeah, but yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much, and thank you everybody for joining. I'd like to thank you for accepting the challenge to face off on Colbyashi Maru. You obviously crushed it. But everybody, please be sure to check out Shruti over on Twitter, as well as check out her learning resource for GraphQL at learninggraphql.com. That's a pretty awesome domain name that you snagged there.
It's super cheap too.
That's awesome. But next week we're gonna have Mariata Wajaya, who will face off against building a GitHub bot in Python with GidgetHub. So Shruti, before we head off, any last words?
I just wanted to say thank you so much, Colby, for having me here, and for everybody in the audience for being so patient with me while I troubleshoot my issues. And thank you so much for the support. If you do have any questions about GraphQL, or if you want to just get the boilerplate, it is shared here, but I'll also share it after. Actually, let me just share it right now. Some of the sample code that I worked on today is present in the GitHub repo as well. Oh no, I did not share the right link. GraphQL
Oh,
standard boilerplate.
but that'll be perfect. And I can include it in the YouTube description as well.
Yes. It is in another branch. If you look at the top, you'll see REST API branch. You can find some of that code here. I'll also push everything that I did today there as well. But if you have any questions of converting a REST API into a GraphQL API or vice versa, you can hit me up on Twitter or send me a DM on Twitch. I hang out on Twitch as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks again so much. For some reason, I keep hitting the mute tab. I don't know why I keep doing that. But yes, thank you again so much. I think we're going to go ahead and raid Trost Coates, who is working on Component Carousel right now. But yeah, thank you everybody who tuned in for Colbyashi Maru. This is Colby signing off.